welcoming in our co-hosts as they are kind enough to return for the fourth and final segment of our show, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
What would you have said if Maria and I decided to exit?
Yeah, we just left in the middle.
So make sure you close that door on the way out.
You wouldn't even miss us,
I don't
probably.
like all that noise in the hallway coming in here while I'm trying to do a show.
There you
people. In fact, as many times as you guys have to get up from drinking all that coffee, I might as well be doing the show by myself.
But we all get back
no
here
more
on
diuretics during the show.
We're not late. We sometimes think Maria's not going to make it on time, but she's always here.
I'm always here. I'm better than John Bod, right?
Johnny the Bod.
John the Bod.
Is Maria Lawrenson's voice there as well, and via telephone, Senator Jason Barrett. He is the finance chair. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, Jason. Can you give us a rundown on those February numbers? Do you have any of those handy for you? I know we actually beat estimates.
We did, and I don't have them on me, but let me do the best I can off the top of my head, Rob.
Sure.
So I believe that we were 30 couple million over estimates for February. I think as I recall, the personal income tax numbers were up a little bit. I'll find that number here in just a minute. But the one that was down that is usually performs fairly well was the sales tax, consumer sales tax. Consumer sales tax actually came in at roughly $3 million under estimate. Mm-hmm. We did have a big month for severance tax of $28 million. And remember, I told you last month that because the end of the month ended on a weekend, that it was possible some of the January numbers rolled into February, and I speculate that that's probably what happened. So, I think the estimates, we were a little closer to estimates both for January and February, but the actual collection, came in because of that end of the month issue that I mentioned. It came in a little light on January, and then obviously, we had a really good February. So.
I have the Metro News article in front of me, Jason. It said $33.7 million in excess. There was severance tax collections that were $28 million over the $17 million over the monthly estimate, and personal income tax collections came in at $20.7 million over projection. So that might have been the January carryover you're talking about?
For severance, yes.
Yes.
I think that because, again, severance tax, collection comes in, and sometimes when it's the weekend or a holiday, it gets delayed a couple days before some of that severance comes in. So, I think a really good month for February. I expect some more good months. Typically, the second half of the year, performs a little better. That's kind of just, historic data from the past couple of years. So I think we're on the right track. Anytime that we have a surplus, that's great news for the state of West Virginia.
Is it possible, and I'm looking, at these numbers and combining them with, I think it was about a $10 million carryover as well. Could you potentially be running a surplus by the end of the year of 150 to 200 million? Is that possible?
I think that's a little optimistic. I like to estimate these estimates somewhat conservatively. I think we're probably, in the $100 million range. Would be my guess. About
100. Okay, very good.
Now, if it's better than that, then great. But it's better to, try to underpromise and overdeliver than overpromise and underdeliver. So
I'm glad you said that the right way too. By the way,
trust me, I had to think about it before I said it. I didn't want to say it backwards.
That would be easy to mess up. There is a discipline bill moving through the Senate. Education Chairwoman Amy Grady, and we haven't talked to her this year about that, but we talked to her about it plenty last year. Do you know much about that bill, Jason? Have you been exposed to the voting on it at all?
Well, that bill came out of education, and I don't serve on education. I believe that bill to be very similar to last year, where where the teacher's able to remove some students from a elementary school classroom. And I think really what it does is give more protection to the teacher when they see a student that is impeding the progress of others. And, everyone always asks the question, well, what about middle school and high school? Well, they can already do that in middle school and high school. So this just extends it to elementary school. And and I've mentioned these surveys that have been done. both by the state Department of Education and by a couple of the teachers' unions. And the number one issue that comes back from teachers is the discipline issue. And so, I think this is an incredibly important bill. Unfortunately, it didn't make it across the finish line last year. There was some politics being played, I think, in the House on this issue. So, I'm optimistic that we're going to get there this year on that bill. Somewhat related, I think, very related. The food dyes bill is on third reading today, so it's up for final passage, which would ban food dyes, synthetic food dyes, in August of this year to be used in public schools. And then in January of 2027, those synthetic food dyes would be banned in West Virginia entirely. And that January date matches up with the federal government's ban on Red 3 in January of 2027. It matches up with California's ban of synthetic food dyes in schools in 2027. And there are several other states, including Oklahoma. And I spoke with a senator from Oklahoma who is leading the charge on banning food dyes and other additives in the Oklahoma legislature. Again, I spoke with her this morning, and their bill is much stronger than ours. They have 21 or 22 additives that their bill looks to ban. I think we're at 8 or 9. I think so. There's a lot of movement across the country on this issue. As we said before, Europe and Canada and so many other places across the world have banned these synthetic dyes. However, in the United States, it hasn't been done. So there's a lot of support nationally across this country on that issue. And West Virginia, if the vote goes the right way here a little after 11 o'clock, we're going to be the leader. We're going to be the first one to really implement this ban statewide.
I'm going to ask you something else that you're not on the committee for, too, before we get to some other more directed things. A few years back, when you were a delegate, you gave an impassioned, moving speech on the floor regarding child welfare in the state of West Virginia. I'll never forget it. When I watched it, I had a tear in my eye when I was watching it because it was so inspiring. But this past week, Judge Joseph Goodwin dressed down the legislature for not acting enough on the foster care system in West Virginia. He spread the blame around a little bit, but he also mentioned the legislature is not doing their job on this. Jason, I know this isn't your committee, but I'm sure by now you have to be aware of Joseph Goodwin's comments on this. And are you aware of anything that's going to further address these problems in West Virginia?
Well, to be honest, I'm unaware of his comments. I know there are several champions of the issue in the House, and I know you've had Adam Burkhammer on, who's been a champion of the foster care issue, who fosters several children himself. It is a incredibly difficult issue, and the solution from the critics always is just throw more money at it. And we have spent a lot of money, we've invested a lot of money. And there's still work to be done. We have not had the Department of Human Services here in the Finance Committee yet for their budget hearing. They were actually scheduled for Monday. I asked them for more specific information as it relates to every program they have, what the actual spend is, so that we can get to the bottom of, are these dollars being utilized in the way in which the legislature actually appropriates them to be able to address issues like foster care and other child welfare concerns. So, it's easy to cast blame to the legislature, but we have an entire department in state government, one of the largest agencies in state government, the Department of Human Services. And frankly, this is their job to do it. And I'm not passing the buck by any means, but they're the ones day in and day out oversee foster care programs in West Virginia. And they're the ones that come to the legislature making requests of things that they need to help do their job. And I can't think of one example when they have come to the legislature and we have not given them what they've asked for.
Bill. Yeah, good morning, Jason. Jason, let's go back to dollars and monies for a couple minutes.
Okay.
The governor said we're faced with a $400 million potential shortfall. I think Senator Eric Tarr has kind of reinforced that. But I've heard several other senators and delegates say we do not have that problem. From your perspective as president of the Senate Finance Committee, are we faced with a $400 million shortfall?
Well, the governor has given us a balanced budget. So, it's not like that we have to go find $400 million right now as we put together our budget in the legislature. Just so that there's an understanding, the current governor has taken a lot of expenditures that we've made last year through supplemental appropriation, which are mid-year expenditures, through surplus section spending, which is in what we refer to as the back of the budget. So he has taken all of those things and all of the general revenue spending, and he has matched that up with our revenue projections. And that's what showed a $400 million gap. Now, some of those things were one-time expenditures. Some of those things were things that we have no plan and had no plan to continue to fund moving forward. For example, there was a nursing program. It was a 3-year program. I believe $6-8 million, off the top of my head, $6-8 million a year. That's in that $400 million gap that the governor talked about. Now, that was a 3-year program. Last year was the 3rd year. So there are things like that I think that we can back out, to be able to, to get that number down. But again, the governor has given us a balanced budget. We will pass a balanced budget by April 12th. And there are some examples of large expenditures that we're not spending this year that, again, was in that $400 million number. For example, there are the teachers' retirement system. As long as that fund in that retirement system grows at a 7.25%, then we don't actually have to contribute more money. In past years, we have contributed large amounts of money to get that teachers' retirement system funded at the appropriate level. Several years ago, it was one of the worst funded in the country. I think that in the percentage of the teens, it is now in the 80s. At 2034, it is projected to be fully funded. A lot of that has been done because of past additional contributions annually to the teachers' retirement system. But this year, we don't actually need to put in additional money into TERS because we're still on pace for that 2034, and because the investment has performed so well. There's that example, and there's a couple other retirements that are the same way. So all those things were factored in that $400 million number that the governor provided. So when you back out, a lot of those large expenditures, then that number comes down, and that's why he was able to give us, a balanced budget without any. There are some cuts. I don't want to make anyone believe that there are not some cuts, but there are not $400 million in cuts in our budget to make up for that gap.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks much. That explains a lot of it. When you say back out, will we be backing out approaching the zero? Is it still going to be an appreciable amount of money that you'll have to find dollars for?
Well, no. I mean, again, he's given us a balanced budget. We're working through his budget for the 134 of us to decide, what changes we want to make to the budget. Are there some areas of state government where we want to, increase the spend, which is referred to as an improvement now, which is an interesting term. But so we will look to see if there are any improvements to the budget in certain agencies, and we'll also look to see if there are any decreases to some other agencies. We also have the ability to sweep some of the accounts. Some agencies build up large special revenue accounts, and special revenue is things that sometimes agencies will charge for services they provide, fees that they charge. It goes into a special revenue account. And over the years, sometimes these special revenue accounts build up substantially, and the legislature has the ability to come in and sweep some of that money to use for other things.
Quickly to break in here, Winchester Avenue, Apple Harvest Drive, eastbound lane shut down due to a traffic accident. Here, getting this from Alert Berkeley at 9:50 a.m. Maria.
Jason, talk a little bit about the switching gears a little bit. The vaccine bill, so to speak, as it's been called, passed out of the Senate, correct?
It did.
What's the status, or do you have any sense of where that is in the House now?
I do. It is in the House Health Committee.
Okay.
I don't believe that they have taken the bill up yet. Which is not unusual because, typically, they'll run through House bills before they get to Senate bills. But I think this is one that's probably going to be taken up sooner rather than later, simply because it's been a priority of the legislature for a number of years, and I expect whether it's the identical version that the Senate passed, I can't speak to that, but I believe that the House probably within the next week to two will get a vaccine bill out of the House and send it back to the Senate, and then we'll have to work on a negotiation between both the House and the Senate to get a compromise on a bill that both sides can live with. That's how I expect. That's how I envision it playing out.
So your prediction then is this year some version of that legislation will pass.
Yes.
Okay.
Jason,
as it did last year and the previous governor vetoed.
Sure.
Yeah. Jason, earlier in the show, we had Mark O'Hearn from WVU on talking about CON, something I think you are more than just vaguely aware of. We've talked about it a great deal here. Yeah. Last week, you made the comment that you thought if it's going to be resurfaced, it's going to be from the House side, and you thought there's a mechanism of bringing it to the floor and bypassing the committee. The others had said you thought it'd be from the Senate side. Do you still think if it does resurface, it's going to be via the House?
It's going to have to be. Okay. And I think last week I laid out the ways in which it could be resurrected. Now, I think the discharging from the committee to the floor is the least likely option. I think a more likely option is that the House Health Committee looks to maybe water the bill down some to get it palatable, where it only died in that committee 13-12, and so I can see where the bill could be watered down a little bit to flip a vote or two in order to get the bill out of the committee. And I think if it gets to the floor, I think it would pass. But it is a top priority of the governor, and the Senate, to be quite candid. The Senate is stronger on CON than the House is, which is kind of why we asked the House to take the lead on it. So I just think that, because we have the support, it is not, certainly not 100% support in the Senate. There are some folks that are opposed to that, but we sent the vaccine bill over, and I think it's the House's turn to send over the CON bill.
All right, Mr. Gambling guy here, right? So, yeah. So fixed odds racing in horse and dog racing. Explain what that means. That's one of your bills.
It is. It's something that the horse industry in the area is supportive of. A couple of other states are starting to do fixed odds, and so it was something that I introduced, to help the horse industry. Fixed odds bet is. You go place a wager on the Steelers to win the Super Bowl, which right now should be at about 10,000 to 1.
Killing me.
And that's a fixed odds. When you make that wager now, if that were to happen, that it will pay out on those odds. The way horse racing and dog racing is done is through pari-mutuel, where you make a bet on a horse that might be 10 to 1. Everyone else makes their bets on all the other horses. All the money goes into a big pot, and they figure out there's a calculation done based on which horses the bet the money was put on, and then the payout is decided after that. And so while you might make a wager at 10 to 1 on a horse, if everybody else makes the same wager, it could go down to 2 to 1. And so what fixed odds does is it fixes the odds when you place your bet, the same way a sports bet. So it really creates both a greyhound and thoroughbred wager into a sports bet. And so that's basically what it does, to allow the sports books to add, whether they want to add the Kentucky Derby or they want to add some wager or some races at Charlestown to fixed odds. So it doesn't eliminate pari-mutuel betting. It just gives the operator the ability to offer a fixed odds wager on greyhound and thoroughbred racing.
All right, very good. Now I've got 2 minutes left. Question as the finance chair. How do you decide what bills actually are going to make it to your committee agendas?
So we have a giant whiteboard in the office that has every bill on it, and it has what the fiscal impact is on that bill, up or green or red, whether it brings in money to the state or whether it costs money. And, I have to rely on the caucus to give me some direction on where their priorities are, but be mindful of what, the cost is. And there are a lot of good bills in this committee that, cost a significant amount of money, and I'm just not going to be able to put them on the agenda this year. So, it's a delicate process where you go through and you prioritize where our spends need to be, and just hope that the membership is understanding, and I try to bring them in and get their feedback as much as possible, because this isn't just my decision to make, but I have to be the one that oftentimes is the bearer of bad news, and there are some committee chairmen who run bills out, because it's good policy, and really the financial aspect of it isn't their concern. But they send bills to me, and I'm the one that gets the pressure and the heat for not running them. But I just have to tell people, look, we have to prioritize our spending, and if you send me a bill that's great policy, but it costs $15 or $20 million in this budget year, that's probably a non-starter. One of the things has always been the increase in the homestead exemption, and so this year I'm going to introduce a constitutional amendment changing the homestead exemption and a piece of legislation to change the homestead exemption. When we do it, it's right now it's at $20,000, and we bump it to $40,000. That's a hit to the counties, but it's also a $12 million hit to the state because of the school aid formula and the local share.
Jason,
so what I'm looking to do,
I'm out of time. I got 5 seconds to wrap that up.
So what I'm looking to do is to spread that out over a number of years to be able to provide relief to seniors, but also do it in a way in which we can afford it.
Let's pick that up next week. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Have a good week, Jason.
Back with the final minute next.